It is clear that in 2022, accessing the justice system is not easy for British Columbians. This problem, however, is not new, and it's clear that there is much to do when it comes to making our justice system more accessible. Evidence has shown that almost half, 48.4% of Canadians over 18 will experience at least one civil or family justice problem over any given 3-year period. This begs the question, why is it so difficult for people in our province to access the justice system? To answer these questions, we turn to those who work to support British Columbians in accessing the legal system.
My name is Andrew Pillier, and I'm an assistant professor at the Thompson Rivers University Faculty of Law.
My name is Andrew Robb. I am the staff lawyer at the Disability Law Clinic at Disability Alliance BC.
My name is Dee Dee Dufresne. My pronouns are they, them. I work at the First United Church Community Ministry Society as an advocate and manager of the advocacy program.
This is Douglas King, the executive director at Together Against Poverty Society.
My name is Kim Hawkins, and I'm the executive director at Rise Women's Legal Center.
I'm Odette Dempsey-Caputo. I am the senior lawyer at the Elizabeth Fry Legal Clinic.
My name is Ryan Carter, pronouns of he, him. I've been working at the BC Civil Liberties Association as the litigation and office coordinator for 2 years and 3 months.
What is your perspective on the status of access to justice in BC?
It's not a knowledge issue with the access to justice, but it's actually a resource issue.
I do think that British Columbia is particularly bad in terms of the kinds of services that are available and how limited those services are, and how difficult it is for people to get the kind of substantive representation that they need to advance their case and take concrete steps and actually conclude their case. So even what is available, what I see in British Columbia is a lot of very piecemeal solutions, including what we're able to offer at Rise because of capacity. Lots of summary advice, lots of people getting duplicated services because they're so limited, getting legal aid help that doesn't get them to the end of their case or resolve them. So we see a lot of people coming in at Rise with kind of half-finished cases.
In the access to justice kind of concept and in our system where we work with people in poverty, often we lose cases not because they deserve to lose, they did anything wrong, but just because they couldn't access the system. They didn't have communication, they didn't have internet, they didn't have phone.
There's no question from me, just from the volume of calls that we get at our office, which is far greater than we are able to respond to effectively. Like, we're certainly not able to give the legal assistance that people need to everybody who calls us. And I think based on that alone, it shows that there is a long way to go. When we get calls like that, we try to refer them to other resources that might be in a better position to help them. But very often they say, I've already called around, I've talked to those resources, you're the 10th office I've called, and they all keep saying the same thing, that they'd love to help me, but they just don't have the resources to do it.
What are the barriers to access to justice?
A lot of people experience kind of being pushed around organizations. So you go to one and they say, oh, we don't do that, but organization B does. And you go to organization B and they say, oh, we don't do that, but organization C does. And it goes on and on and on. That points to a lack of coordination amongst access to justice involved organizations. And I think there needs to be more emphasis put on that so that these organizations can understand what each of them do and what each of them don't do, so that there can be a more effective referral system.
Where do we go from here? To start, it's pretty clear that the systems that we do have could be a lot better. And I don't just mean changing the system. I mean, the systems that we've created aren't working the way they are supposed to in the first place. And that's partly because they're underfunded. The residential tenancy branch, it can be months before you get an eviction hearing. The employment standards branch right now, it could be almost a year until you get a determination on whether or not your employer has taken wages away from you. It's an unacceptable delay. And, they're the delays that would never be allowed in the more traditional aspects of the justice system. In the Supreme Court level, at the Court of Appeal, you would never allow that kind of delay to occur. And sometimes it feels like we've gotten too used to allowing the tribunal system and the poverty law systems to have a different standard and to have a different expectation when it comes to access to justice. So
the cost award against them really makes people scared. They could lose everything if they get that, if they have to pay those kinds of fees. So I do think it's like it's a barrier that I think would be so easy for the court system to remove.
We have to stop kidding ourselves as a legal profession that someone else is going to do it and that there are all these lawyers. And I talk sometimes about the mythical lawyer, because if you go into any courtroom, or if you go to any talk on access to justice, or you go to any symposium, people will say, or anybody talks about having alternate legal service providers or paralegals, everybody will get very angry and say, well, they should speak to a lawyer. Or you go into a courtroom and they'll say, come back when you've spoken to a lawyer. And who is this lawyer? Who is this lawyer that everybody is speaking to?
So what we used to talk about is you refer the person to the mythical lawyer. Call, this phone number and there's these mythical lawyer. I can't help you. You need to talk to a lawyer. That's what we refer to as a mythical lawyer. It is often a last resort when you're going to a student clinic or any of these clinics. The clients, they can't afford a lawyer. I mean, let's be honest, most middle-class people can't afford a lawyer. So, we get a diversity of clientele.
How do we break down these barriers to access to justice?
I think there's been some progress in access to justice in the last 15 years, but does it have the foundation that's necessary? Does it have the strength to withstand things like pandemics, like changes in governments? Absolutely not. And ultimately, it's still always some of the most marginalized, some of the lowest income people in our society that face the brunt of that. I
think we're missing a crucial institution, right? And what I mean by this is for people who don't understand that a problem in their life may have a legal aspect, I think we need something like a general advice service. That is a place where people can go, somewhere where they can turn for trusted advice with few or no barriers that can help them find the right solution to the problem in their life.
We have to be really careful about designing systems that work really well for the people who are already probably best positioned to get themselves through it. But that doesn't work well for everybody. That doesn't work well for somebody working in a second language, who can't access a computer, who doesn't have sort of knowledge of the Canadian legal system, or whose culture doesn't fit well with the Canadian legal system, which is a lot of people.
Often in conversations around access to justice, I think people's immediate response is hey, technology. And then in reality, it's whoa, pull it back, because technology is only as good as the people that have access to it and the ability to use it.
Because we assume that everyone has access to online. We assume everyone has optic now, that it's not dial-up. We assume that people have cell phones in these areas, but they don't. They don't have cell service there. There's so much of British Columbia and all of Canada that have no access to reliable internet, if they have internet at all, and no access to cell service. And so much of our answers, and I'm not saying it's wrong to do that. I think there's a lot of good in technology, but I think we need to be aware, unless we're going to expand that and make it a right for people to have reliable internet, we can't just rely on technology. So if I had all the money in the world, get access to, reliable internet and cell service into these communities so that they can access services.
One of the things I think is crucial if we're talking about something like justice at technology or understanding how to improve access to justice is it has to be person-centered. Mm-hmm. It has to be focused not on the justice system or the institution or lawyers or judges. They're obviously important players in that. But the reason why all of these things exist is fundamentally for the people who experience justice problems, right? For people who are seeking justice. They are the center of all of this, and they have to be the focus of efforts to improve that system. And that means not just imagining what those people want, but actually engaging with them.